All right. Hey. I think we're cooking with grease. How's everybody doing? Okay, sorry for the late start. I won't condense this, but I will make it impactful. Will that work? All right. So we're going to talk about podcasting a little differently than you would normally hear it, because we need to talk about the why first before we get into what mic you need, what's your software. We'll get into that, but the most important thing is the understanding the why you're doing it as opposed to how you're doing it. Can I help anybody here? Okay. So, can I tell you about myself? You think that would work? Okay. So my name is Prentiss Thompson. I'm an engineer. I started out in the music business, learned engineering from being in the music business, and I'm a front of house engineer. I'm a TD at a church in South Carolina, where I TD their church it's called Riverland Hills Baptist Church. I'm also a trainer. I train churches, and I also train manufacturers. So I was the trainer for B&H for 8 years. So those wonderful people that you call or email or chat, all of their curriculum that kind of comes through the phone and the texts, that came from me. So I trained their staff, 5,000 people, on audio. I'm also an entrepreneur in the podcast space. So I own a podcast studio in New York City. So not only do I understand the creative side of things, I understand the business side of things. All right? So now that we got that out the way, can I talk about how I got here? All right. God kind of deals with me kind of how he dealt with Abram. You know, he just kind of told him, get your stuff and go that way. Get your childrens, get your donkeys and your llamas, whatever you have, and go that way. God told me to start a podcast in 2019. So we talk about kingdom culture. We talk about real life. We talk about technology. We talk about it in a way that how we deal with our media teams, meaning that we talk about team building. We talk about how to deal with a passive leader. We talk about how to deal with an aggressive leader. We also talk about technology. We talk about how to build teams, how to train teams, how to communicate. So it's more than just technology. It's what we deal with week by week, Sunday by Sunday, Sunday by Sunday, Sunday by Sunday, event by event, Easter, Christmas, Mother's Day, all of those things that happen in our church, right? So I'm a planner, so when God tells me to do something, I try to look at the path from what I see, how I see it, right? I started recording the podcast in 2019 because I was launching in what's the next year? 2020. So we all know what happened in 2020. COVID happened. I caught COVID. Secondly, I ended up with a cancer diagnosis, and I had to have cancer surgery. So I'm in the hospital. And my podcast launches, because I'm a planner, I have it set up to launch. By the time I'm out of recovery, this thing's taken off. People are starting to respond, and I'm completely amazed. So right now, I'm up to about 270, almost 300 shows. So it took me 3 years to get there. So think about that. That's why I'm here. I'm here because in 2019, God told me to do something. And now what year? This 4 years later, right? So let's take a trip. So we all know that technology stands on top of technology, right? I don't think anyone here is old enough to know what AM radio was in 1922. So in 1922, 500 radio stations, is in 2 million households. So AM radio was very similar to what we have as TV programming today, right? You had drama, you had sports programming, you had soap operas, very similar. So how do you reach people in 1922? Well, you broadcast church sermons or church services to reach the people of the day, right? You use the technology of the day to reach the people of the day. So by 1978, now FM radio started in 1941. So by the time it's 1978, you have 10,000 radio stations. Now it's portable. You have more than 100 million more people in the country. You have car radios, you have transistor radios, you have boom boxes, you have Walkmans, all of this technology, right? How do churches use the technology to reach the people? They would do church sermons or church services. So it's more people use technology of the times to reach the people of the day. Everybody tracking with me? So let's fast forward now. Almost 100 years later, 15,000 terrestrial radio stations. You have satellite. You have internet radio. You have all these smart devices. It's consumed everywhere. I mean, everyone has a computer in their pocket, a few, right? Can anyone guess what is the number one way churches use podcasting? Churches use this medium. You know, you guys are amazing. I've been reading your minds. I've been giving you clues along the way. Church sermons. So can we fast forward now to what we're going to talk about, podcasting. So think about this. 4 million shows. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. 424 million people listen to podcasts. We have access, think about this, we have access to 424 million people wherever they are. Can anyone guess what is the number one way churches use podcasting? You know, you guys are amazing. Church sermons. So, we all know that technology stands on top of technology. And there's nothing wrong with having church sermons. So there's nothing wrong with it. But we can go deeper. So what I'm about to tell you will make it even better. So, hear what the words say. The scripture. Go into the world, preach the gospel to all creation. Is all creation that church? You guys are smarter than I thought you were. So, let's go sermon deeper level. So how can you use podcasting along with your church sermon, your church service, even deeper? So, what I'm about to tell you is going to require some work. So this is not add water, mix it up, woo-hoo, got a cake. No. This is going to require some work. What if you did a Q&A about the church sermon with the person that lined up with the message? Meaning that, say you had a topic was fatherhood, and you had a father. It could be a divorced father, a single dad. It could be a married dad. It could be someone who was just incarcerated. All these different levels of fatherhood, entry levels of fatherhood, and you talk about the service, the sermon, in a more relative way. You think you can get more out of it. Okay. Here we go. What if you had a You for a Kids version? They're on the phones anyway. We're on our phones anyway, right? So what if you can also get a kids and a youth version, so you're all getting the same word, but you're different levels that you can digest it? You think you can get more out of that church sermon? The answer is yes. What if your church or your pastor did daily devotionals or weekly devotionals to tie in, to bring you through the year? You think you'd be more impactful? You think your church could have these different levels? So not only do you have your church sermon, you have all of these other things that goes along with your church sermon. So the person who doesn't even go to church can get this. I'm pretty sure if you did a Q&A about fatherhood, there are fathers who don't know the Lord, right? Do you think you could be impactful in their life by showing fatherhood from a Christian perspective and showing how it's relative to the Word of God? That's using deeper level sermon. So let's go deeper. So this is my phone. And on my phone, I have all the things that I like. Obviously, I love Stephen A. I love sports. I love Shannon Sharp. He's on there now. I'm a film director, so I like things about film. I love myself. That guy's brilliant right there. I like to learn about finance. These are the things I like to. I'm pretty sure that your phone does not look like my phone. I'm sure. Guarantee it, because we're all individuals, right? So here are all the different categories that we find on a podcast search. What if there was a podcast that represented Christ, our way of life, how we think, how we breathe, in these different areas? You notice I have not highlighted religion and spirituality because I think we got that covered. I think it's enough church service. I think we got, and there's nothing wrong with it. It needs to be there, but this needs to be there too. So this is why I'm saying we have to figure out the why to think in podcasting beyond the church, because, like the word says, you ought to go into the world, preach the gospel to all creation, right? That's called faith and culture. So let me give you a small example. What if you had a dynamic youth pastor? I mean, this guy's amazing. Kids love him. The adults love him. He lives the word. He walks the walk. He walks the walk, talks the talk. Dynamic. He can't go 2 steps through your church without getting stopped. The aura of God surrounds him. The power of God he's a powerful young guy. But he also loves skateboarding. This guy can tell you about skateboarding. He can tell you about decks. He can tell you about wheels. Oh, he's a gamer. He can tell you about games. He can tell you about all these things. And he says, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast about gaming or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, he gets a following. So now it's 100,000 people listening to his podcast or watching him game, right? They don't know he's a pastor. They just know he's a gamer. But someone says, let me Google this guy. And they say, oh my gosh, my word, this guy's a pastor. And all of a sudden, your numbers start rising on your YouTube channel. All of a sudden, kids start showing up to your church that you've never seen before, because he's taken his interest and used it to bring faith to culture. That's podcasting beyond the church. That's taking it to the people. So, imagine all of these categories filled up. Because we're supposed to be salt and light, right? Has anyone sprinkled salt on anything and it not changed? You could sprinkle salt on a strawberry. You could sprinkle salt on anything. We sprinkled the gospel on all the categories. Do you think that we could impact the world if we view it that way? So I guarantee right now, if you're watching or you're in the room, the Lord is speaking to you about an idea that you had or you thought about. Because right now, I guarantee you, I'm either seed, I'm either water, or I'm a light of confirmation of you not being afraid to venture into this. because this is what we're talking about. So now that we got past the why, let's get into the how and what we're looking at. Okay, so these are the show formats for podcasting. Solo format, which is what you have on Sunday morning service, co-hosted, hosting a guest and a panel. Now, your panel and your co-hosted is really great if you want to take on a topic and not have a guest. So you want to broach a topic, so it could be any topic. You have panel discussion. I mean, I saw a great show called The Tastemakers, where they take on topics of the day. It's four guys, two girls and two guys. They take on topics of the day. Co-hosted shows, showing the guests. These are the only show formats for podcasting. There are only two types of recording. So understand this, with audio, you only can do three things with it. You can only amplify it, which we're doing now. You can only record it, and you can only monitor. So if I had a stage wedge here, I'm monitoring my audio signal. These are the things you can do with audio. So there are only two types of recording when it comes to podcasting. If you're doing computer recording, more than likely you're running it right from your board to our audio interface and you're uploading it. That's what you're doing, right? There are two options when it comes to audio recording. So USB microphone is a great choice if you're doing a solo show. In front of your computer, plug it in. It sees it as the audio input, select it, cut it on, record. Audio interface is great if you want to do more than one source, right? We'll have 4 sources, and you want to record it into your computer. Because on top of recording it, you got to mix it. Got to master it. Has anyone ever watched a video with horrible audio? You will turn it off. You will watch a horrible movie with great audio. I don't even know why I even watched this, but man, when the plane landed, it just sounded like I was there. Because you listen to it because the audio is great. You cannot have a podcast without superior audio. Why? Because there are 4 million shows. We have choices. We have choices. All right, so prominent software of the day: Pro Tools, Logic Pro, Reaper, Studio One, Audacity, free 99. That's the best price in the world. And if you are a Mac user, GarageBand. GarageBand comes with a unit. It's built in. So here you have your software, the things you can utilize to record your podcast. Let's go to hardware recorders. Now, this is a great unit for all-in-one. So it normally has 4 to 6 microphone inputs. It allows you to have your intro and your outro music right on the pads. You can have special effects. All of these things add quality to your show. It adds nuances to your show, so you can pretty much shape the show the way you want. You can take phone calls. You can play music from your Bluetooth. You can also connect it to your computer and use it as an interface. I actually use one of these units to record my show and get it to my because I have a studio, so I get it to my studio so I can mix it, or I can mix it on my laptop. This allows you the flexibility. These units usually run between $300 to $600, but it's a worthwhile investment if you know you're going to be mobile. Like, I'm recording podcasts on site this week. I have my unit just packed in my bag. I'm going to pull it out with some microphones. I'll have these 2 gentlemen on there. Say hi to the camera. So here are your different types of recorders. All I'm saying is that you can do this. You can do this. make sure you can see. I see you peeking over me. You can do this. Now, here's the question. What microphone do I use? Condenser microphone, very sensitive, right? It's gonna pick up everything in the room. I would not use a condenser microphone in a room like this if I was a podcaster. It's gonna pick up, I hear the HVAC, it's gonna pick it up. So you wanna use a dynamic microphone. You can use an SM58, as long as it's a dynamic microphone, you're gonna need a little bit more gain, but a lot of these hardware units come with these buffers where you can get your input attenuation, so you can get your level up to kind of match what a condenser mic would do, because a condenser mic will give you a higher output. The dynamic mic won't. So here are some choices. Rode Pod mic, $100. Same price as the SM58. A little bit more money, $300. RE20, RE320, and probably the creme de la creme, which is this guy, SM7B. Now, I record my podcast on the pod mic. In my studio, I have these mics. I should probably get some at the crib, but But these are your choices. Everything I'm saying to you is that this can be done. It is possible. It is obtainable to think about podcasting in this way. Here's another fun fact. This matters. Has anyone gone to a record store? I mean, like back in the day. I'm going to date myself severely right now. Going to a record store and picked out a record or a CD just on the cover. Just said, man, this looks like it's gonna sound good. Just from the detail, look how he has his hat tilted. And look how she's standing. This looks like this is gonna sound amazing. The same thing with your podcast artwork. You need to take your time, because your artwork should say what it's doing, what it's about, what can they look forward to listening to. Just don't put up podcasts, me, the me podcast. What does that mean? Your title should mean something. It should say something to the listener, because why? They have choices. Did I tell you guys they have choices? They have choices. We have choices. Then you have to get it to podcast hosting. Now, what is podcast hosting? There are a list of companies, and what you do is, this is where you upload your podcast. This is how it gets to all these different outlets, distribution-wise. This is how it gets on Spotify. This is how it gets on Apple. This is how it gets on Audible. This is how it gets on Amazon. All of these places where people listen to podcasts, this is how it gets there. So you upload it to what we call a podcast hosting company. Normally, it's about $10 to $20 a month, but this will get you, because at the same time, they have to store the audio, right? And you record your audio, you should have it at like 192 as an MP3, because you want it to easily play, but you want to make sure your quality is up there, so when it squishes it to 130, 192 for an MP3, it still sounds great. So you want to make sure that when you're uploading on whatever company that you select, your quality is there. This is how the podcasting, how host sends out to the distributors. This is how it's able to get everywhere, because your podcasting hosting company will provide you with an RSS feed. Very, very important. Once you upload it, they will provide it for you. But this is how it finds it, because it's hosted on the podcast, on the podcast hosting company, and Apple and Spotify, they say, oh, we want it on our show. Can you provide us with the RSS feed? It will automatically send it to you, send it to that podcast. So that's how you're able to have the same podcast on Spotify, on Deezer, or all these other podcasting distributions. Everybody tracking with me? Okay, great. So these are the first things you need to understand before launching a podcast. Whatever type of podcast that you want to launch, you have to listen so you can learn. So, for instance, if there's a podcast you like, say it's a podcast about cooking, right? You say, you know what? I'm going to start a cooking podcast. Listen to cooking podcasts before you even record one, because you're going to pull out nuances about these different podcasts. Why? Because now you're listening not just for entertainment, you're listening to learn. So now you're going to pull out things that you would never have thought about. Oh, where does the outro music come out? Oh, before he goes into his next segment, he plays a little break. Oh, the outro music is not 3 minutes, it's 30 seconds. Who'd have thought that? I never thought of it that way. Why? Because now you're listening to learn. So whatever type of show, if it's a panel, if it's a co-hosted show, if it's just a solo show, listen to what you'd like to accomplish and so you can learn from it. Take your time. Do not rush this. I run into so many podcasters that come up to me and say, I started a podcast, I got to episode 3, and Lord, have mercy. It was just so much work. And I just don't have the time. Take your time and do it. Record 15 shows. Like, I have a new show dropping today and called Good Vinyl Mornings, where I do daily inspiration centered around music. And I give them information about music. And inside of that, you hear God in there, because you hear me, because I'm a vessel, right? Monday through Friday. I recorded 63 shows in 2 weeks. Stretch your hand this way, brother. I need prayer. I need prayer. So think about this. I started recording this in the summer, because I do have a life. But I want to be impactful, and I don't want to be strapped to, oh my God, I don't have a show for next week. This is where you got to get to. You got to get to 100 shows. Can you commit to 100 shows? If you cannot commit to 100 shows, then don't start. Because does anyone know what this sounds? Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, what that sounds like? What does that mean? Okay, why do you know it? Consistency. The Liberty insurance commercial with the emu, like, why do you know? Liberty, why do you know it? Consistency. Got to get to 100 shows. 100 shows, what does 100 shows mean? If I'm doing a weekly show, there it is. It's a math teacher in the room. She's right there. 100 shows. Can you get to 100 shows? If you can't get to 100 shows, don't start. Because now people are going to be waiting for your podcast. Your podcast should launch at the same time every week, no matter what. Now, the Church Sound podcast, I took a break for like 2 months because I'm preparing more content, but I let my listeners know. See what I'm saying? I have a pretty decent following with 270 shows. Now, how is that impactful? Because anyone can go back and listen to my catalog. I have shows for everything on there. I have manufacturers on my show. I have team leaders on my show. I have ministers of music on my show. I have engineers on my show. You can learn something. All you got to do is go to the Church Sound Podcast And there they are. Because now I've built a catalog. So even if I don't have a show, I can promote it. Because now I have content, and my content helps the church, media teams, and also helps pastors to see it from a different perspective. So, this is the Prentiss Thompson version of the Word of God. He said, go, right? That's why we're here, right? Go. And we're going to use podcasts to, and you can read too, great, and to all, right? So podcasting beyond the church. So this will help you even further. I have a course on podcasting. It'll walk you through everything I just told you, but with more detail. If you're interested, hit the QR code. If this is enough for you, great, then I've done my job. I've done my job. Because I'm here to inspire you. I'm here to have you look at podcasting from a different perspective. So, remember how I told you how God tells me to do something? He'll give me a title. So, I'm on my way to quit my job at B&H as a trainer. I'm giving in my 2-week notice. I'm on the train. The Lord was like, pull out your phone and write this down. Okay. Repurpose Network. Okay. What's that? I want you to start a podcast network. Okay, Lord, what is a podcast network? Go research it. I want you to start a podcast network. I said, okay. I said, how do I explain this to people? So this is what he told me in the car yesterday. Has anyone here gone to a restaurant that you're familiar with? So familiar, you don't even need the menu. You can walk in, sit down, and say, you need a menu? No, I don't need a menu. I need this, and tell Arlene half the ice, okay? Don't give me the whole thing of ice. She knows who I am. And you bring a friend with you. And your friend is very apprehensive about going to the restaurant because the reviews have not been great. But because you frequent it so much, you know it. And when this friend shows up, he says, it's not as bad as I thought. This right here was bad. But the stuff that you showed me was great. So I'm saying this so to preface you. I'm a brother from Harlem. I know more about my culture than anybody because I live it. I'm here to let you know that there are more people like me than it is you see on TV. So the Lord told me to create content that will nurture the world through culture. This is what he showed me.
In a world searching for meaning and hope, there's a place where voices rise, spirits are lifted, inspiration abounds, and edutainment and faith meet within culture. Welcome to the Repurpose Podcast Network, your haven for podcasts that envelops the everyday lives of believers. Shows about relationships, news, sports, business, pop culture, health, politics, music, ministry, and so much more. With so much negative content defining the Black experience, our audience is underserved, and controlling the narrative is on the forefront. We amplify, elevate, empower Black creators to share with the world their thoughts and ideas, to push culture into the future. Tune in and unlock a world of captivating content that entertains and uplifts. Let your mind be enthralled, your heart stimulated, and your spirit elevated. The Repurpose Network. One message, many voices.
That's today. I've been planning this for months. Thank you. Thank you. My goal is 100 shows on 1 billion devices, 500 people brought to the Lord. That's my goal. It's an audacious goal, which means I cannot do this alone. So today I launched 5 podcasts. 1 in real estate, 1 for creatives, 1 with music, 1 with ministry. I launched 5 shows today. I started when God told me to start a podcast. Who'd have thunk it? But seed, water, light, growth. So, if you need to contact me for anything, you need more information, hit the QR code, email me at info@Repurpose Network. If you need help with your podcast or help with anything, in your church, video, audio, hit me up. If you have any questions, I think I got a few minutes. I started a little late, but if you have any questions, I'm open to take some questions if you have any. I guess all the brilliant people are here. They came to my class.
Hey, how do you plan out and like automatically upload or release your, yeah?
So when you sign up for a podcast network, you can then set scheduling. So you can say, okay, Tuesday 6 a.m. launch the show every Tuesday, or if it's bi-weekly, or if it's monthly, whatever it is. You can set up your calendar for your whatever you're however you're uploading it. And last thing is like you want to market it, which means on your socials, on your Facebook, to your friends. Yes.
Is there a simple process? So I've got a YouTube channel right now. Is there a simple way to, without having to export the audio separately, for that YouTube audio to kind of filter into a podcast?
No. So what you want to do is you can't do it together. So what I do is I mix it and then I just attach it to the video. So this way it's clean. That's what I do. Answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's it. Hey, listen, I'm so glad you guys. I appreciate you. If you see me around, stop, shake my hand. I don't bite. I have teeth, but I don't bite. And thank you so much for your time.